What's up, everybody? Demon back. Welcome to the brand new Godzilla-Thon. This one is going to be very difficult for me to do. For the main reason is just because this is one of those movies that everyone loves to make fun of. Then you watch it and you're like, it's kind of a nothing movie. Like, there's nothing to make fun of. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's a lot to make fun of with this movie. But when you watch it, you're like, there's nothing, like, crazy going on in here to make fun of. Like, it's just a very dumb movie, a very childish movie, and there's nothing terribly wrong with that. It's just, man, how do we get here from the first Godzilla movie from 1954? How did we wind up with this? So this is the review for 1973's Godzilla vs Megalon. I really am going to have a hard time reviewing this movie. Mostly, like I said, it's just kind of a nothing movie. That's the main reason. Mostly because, I don't know, I feel like most of the time I watched this movie, I did not watch this movie. It was on, I was playing it, I kind of just drifted off staring at the ceiling a lot of the time. You know why? Because this movie is so boring, and it is just stupid and dumb, but it's not so dumb that it's good, but it's not so awful I can rant about it for so long as like I do with Godzilla vs. Hedorah. This one's just kind of straight down the point where you don't want it to be, where it's bad, but it's not bad enough to be great, and it's not bad enough to be terrible. It's just bad. Like, there's nothing goes on in this movie. So, the plot synopsis for this one gonna be kind of all over the place. Like I said, I kind of, most of the time it was on, I was not anywhere in a state of mind of watching a movie. I know some of you guys are gonna be like, why didn't you just, pop back in, watch a second time, there's Godzilla-Thon, you gotta do your reviews legit, you gotta know what you're talking about, blah, 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 blah. You try watching this movie twice in a row. It's mind-numbing. Like, it's a dumb movie. Nothing happens. The only good stuff that happens is the stuff that everyone makes fun of. Jet Jaguar, Godzilla's tail slide. The only stuff that happens in this movie worthy of talking about is the stuff that everyone talks about. So it is going to be incredibly difficult for me to review this. And like I said, I did not follow the plot at all. I was not paying attention. So, let's get into it. We have some nuke tests on an island in the South Pacific. Make some people who are living under the ground mad. They live in this place called, I don't know. I have the name written down here. We'll get to it. I always want to call it Oceania. I just read the book 1984. The place in that book's called Oceania, and I always wanted to call this one Oceania, but it's not. Also, while we're on these side topics of things I can relate to this movie, the channel manager, I know you guys haven't heard about him for a long time, but the channel manager, this is his first Godzilla movie, so this is also the reason he doesn't really like Godzilla that much. And if you want to get a picture, and he'll agree to this, if you want to get a picture of what the channel manager looks like in your head, the little kid who's sitting on the paddle boat at the start of this movie, that's a lot what the channel manager used to look like when he was little, so if you can picture what that kid might look like growing up, that's kind of what my manager looks like. He doesn't do much managing anymore. He used to help me out, but now he doesn't. He just kind of is in the background, just like, hey, good job on your subscribers. And I'm like, yeah, you're doing nothing. So, alright, so let's get into it. Some people are like, what is he talking about? That's channel manager, that's someone we used to talk about a lot in live streams. He used to show up in live streams and monitor the chat and stuff like that. And I had him in a live stream a while ago. So, if you want to go dig through my live streams and find it, you can. Go for it. So let's get back into Godzilla vs. Megalon. Yeah, so there's like this underground thing that, like, some people underground are getting really mad. These nukes are going off. They say, like, people are dying, like, oh, why are they blowing up nukes on us? Like, how are we supposed to know they're down there if they don't ever, like, first of all, how do they even live underground? Like, that's never explained. They're humans, they're normal humans that live underground. How is that possible? I don't know. I guess Hollow Earth from Kong Skull Island, you have to apply that theory here, too, I guess. Even though that technically wouldn't work, because that's just for, like, things to go hibernate in and not get killed. I don't know, this is a dumb movie. So, let's see. So these nukes, they piss off some stock footage from Destroy All Monsters, and by that I mean, yeah, when the nukes are going off, we play some stock footage from the monsters getting gas bombed in Destroy All Monsters. We play that stock footage again and make it look like it's nuke footage this time, I guess. You know, why a nuke going off way out of reach of this island would affect the monsters on Monster Island in a negative way. I don't know. You'd think that, like, Godzilla being an atomic dinosaur, he'd be like, yeah, this is a good power boost. I feel ready for the day. But, you know, it makes him mad too, I think. He's the good guy, so it's hard to tell. Yeah, so that all happens. Like, there's some earthquake under a lake with the channel manager on his paddle boat. So, like, something's under the water. It's the Seatopia, I think that's what they're called. The Seatopians or something. They're under the water, like, blue lights going off and lots of bubbles and stuff. The movie is way too dark after this point. Like, I don't really know what happens in the nighttime stuff. Mostly for lack of paying attention, but also because my VHS is really dark. Speaking of my VHS, I got it from Hollywood Videos. It's a double feature, so it's called the Good Times double feature. So you're not going to have good times watching it, just because both movies on this double feature are not very good. You know, I get it. It contradicts the name of the thing. So we have Godzilla vs Megalon on here, and then we have The Snow Creature, 2 full-length motion pictures. I've never actually watched The Snow Creature. It's in black and white. As a little kid, I used to fall asleep watching Godzilla vs Megalon, and I'd wake up and The Snow Creature would be on, and I'd be like, yeah, what is this? I don't really know, man. It's weird. So it's way too dark. Can't really tell what happens. Like, there's a car chase or something. Like, so some people break in and they destroy this science lab our human characters work at. So the little kid, his dad and his dad's friend, I think that's their relationship to each other. They are, like, work in this laboratory. They're scientists or something, and I think Seatopians maybe break in, destroy the thing, destroy the place. Something like that. And a car chase breaks out or something. Our human cast, their lab is wrecked, and they go back to find it, and they find some sort of, like, weird red rock or something, and then after that, they build this robot called Jet Jaguar. Maybe they use the red rock. I don't quite know. Like I said, I wasn't paying attention. It's not like the movie does a very good job at explaining what's going on. So the underground KKK, aka the Seatopians or whatever, and if you see in the movie, you know what I'm talking about because they're dressed like the KKK. So, they are supported by this monster called Megalon. They get this monster basically to go on ground, above ground, and throw a fit. This doesn't quite happen yet. They just kind of like, arise, Megalon, and do our dirty work because we're angry these people blew up nukes on top of us when they had no idea we're down there. How could we? How could they? You know, it's stupid. So something like that happens or something. And, yeah, so they want Megalon to go kill people above ground. They live in a place, yeah, it's called Seatopia. So the place is called Seatopia. It's explained that it's been getting bombed by the nukes. They've lost like 1 to 2/3 of their population. Megalon, this massive beetle creature, comes above ground. He doesn't start messing stuff up quite yet, but he's going to start messing some stuff up. Human cast is kidnapped. Jet Jaguar takes action. By takes action, I mean he gets kidnapped or something, and the Seatopians gain control of him or something, and he flies off in the air or something. Yeah, if you couldn't tell, I did not pay attention to this movie, and even if you do pay attention to this movie, you're still going to be almost equally as lost as I am, because things just kind of happen in this movie, and it's not to the extent of Hedra, where it's like, one thing will happen in one scene that just won't relate to what happens the following scene. Like, things will just randomly occur in this movie. They all somewhat relate to one another. Like, Jet takes off in the air, and these people are kidnapped in the back of this truck, and Jet kind of flies around for a little while, and the people are in the back of the truck for a little while, and then they eventually escape the truck. In this movie, it feels like things are just more happening for no reason, where in that movie, it's just like scenes are placed randomly together. There's no purpose for it, and the scenes do not need to exist. Like that scene in the bar with the fish heads in Hedra does not need to exist, doesn't relate to anything else going on. The campfire or whatever up on Mount Fuji doesn't relate to anything. Like, we could have seen those characters attack Hedra there, and we didn't have to have that whole, like, black and white campfire. That movie's awful. If you want to hear my thoughts on that, go watch that Godzilla-Thon. It's more of a rant than it is a review. This video, I can't really rant on this movie. It's just so stupid. Like, there's just like, if you rant on it, you're basically just doing what MST3K did, but worse. Like, I don't know how to proceed with this review. So, where were we? So, like, they're kidnapped or something, and Jet Jaguar flies up in the air for a little bit. More car chases or something. Jet is chased around by Megalon. Oh, that's a weird scene. So, Jet Jaguar comes across Megalon, and Megalon starts bouncing after him, and it's really awkward to watch. Like, Jet Jaguar is human-sized by this point of the movie. He hasn't grown yet. So he's flying away, and Megalon is literally, like, bouncing through the air like a rabbit trying to catch up to him. It's so awkward. And that continues for quite a while, actually. So, Jet's chased around by Megalon. This is one of the only good scenes in the movie. So Megalon actually destroys this dam at one point. Like, the special effects are pretty sweet here. So he destroys this dam, and although he does, like, shrink and grow accordingly, just like if you have seen King Kong 1976, like, Kong just shrinks and grows randomly throughout that movie. It doesn't really make any sense. It just happens because they didn't really decide to scale him the way that, let's say, Toho scales their kaiju. And I know, what are you talking about? This is a Toho movie, you idiot. I'm talking about, like, Godzilla 1954, the way every building was in scale to Godzilla. Shin Godzilla, the way he was in scale to every building. This kind of thing, whereas this movie is a terrible example of that. But this movie is a lot like Kong 1976 in the fact that the monsters just kind of grow and shrink depending on where they are. Oh, King Kong vs. Godzilla is also an example of this, where Kong is 100-something feet, 150-ish feet, and he picks this girl up, and then she's like, like 25 feet in his hand, and when he puts her down, then she's like back to being human size. And it's just an error. Like, they just effed up, and it's not supposed to be like, whoa, when Kong touches humans, they grow. Like, if that were to happen in a movie nowadays, everyone would overanalyze it and be like, did you see that? There is a face in the tail, and, it just go on forever. But, so Megalon breaks this dam, and then the water is actually, like, the pressure of the water when it starts flooding through the bottom half of this dam, like the backside where there was no water. It's a great scene because it carries him away and it almost drowns him. It's awesome. So then he gets up and he's all mad and he destroys some cars or planes or something. So then Jet Jaguar is chased around by Megalon some more before Jet Jaguar is... He goes and gets Godzilla. So he goes and gets Godzilla to join the fight against Megalon because he knows that Megalon's a big giant monster who's going to destroy stuff. Godzilla's the good guy by this point in the series, so he goes and gets Godzilla. Megalon and some stock footage destroy Tokyo. So Megalon is really just, we kind of see him open his mouth, and then, like, a ball will fly out of his mouth every once in a while, and we'll see that thing on the top of his head. He's got some cool abilities. Like, the thing on the top of his head shoots some lightning out of it. But that was just an excuse so that they could reuse footage from last movie, and so the balls that come out of his mouth, these grenades that come out of his mouth, we cut to stock footage from Godzilla vs. Gigan, where we see Gigan destroying the city, shooting his grenades out of his mouth. Megalon will, like, swing his giant drill hands, and then we'll just cut abruptly to Gigan's claw hand, like, smashing into things. It's awful. So, then we also have, every time lightning shoots from Megalon's head, then we see Ghidorah's lightning bolts destroying the city because they didn't want to film new footage, or they couldn't. They didn't have the budget for it. I get it. These movies, these late Showa series movies, I have to commend them, and at the same time, I have to condemn them. And here's why. Is because, on the one hand, I get it. They were out of budget, going bankrupt. This was their saving grace. On the other hand, they're awful movies. Like, the late Showa series is so inconsistent. I'm in the minority here. I freaking love Godzilla's Revenge. Then we get Hedorah, hate that movie. Gigan, love that movie. Megalon, hate this movie. Godzilla vs. Megagodzilla, that movie is one of my favorites of all times. That movie is incredible. And then Terror of Mechagodzilla, everyone will give that movie such high praise, and that one's just kind of a meh movie for me. And you'll, when we get there, you'll hear why. It's not like I just have, like, I am against one of the most loved late Showa Godzilla movies for no reason. The most loved late Showa Godzilla movie. I'm not against it for no reason. I'm not even technically against it. I just don't think it deserves the praise that it gets. So we'll get there. 2 weeks from now, we'll get there. Now, yeah, so this movie, so it's almost out of budget, I get it, but the movie's bad, so you can't really be like, oh, why'd you make such a terrible movie? Well, they made it to save their company. If they didn't make this movie, we would have never gotten the Heisei series. We would have never gotten the Millennium series, never gotten the Legendary series, we would have never gotten Kong Skull Island. Oh, that'd be a shame. We would have never gotten Shin Godzilla. So we have to respect what these movies did in saving Toho. Alright, back to this movie. I feel like most of this review has been me talking about other stuff just because I have nothing to say about this movie. So we see some stock footage destroying the city. Godzilla is... So all the footage of Godzilla here is basically stock footage. Jet Jaguar flies up to new footage of Godzilla, and Godzilla's like, yeah, I'll join the fight or whatever. And then he follows Jet, and then he turns into stock footage from Sea Monster and Godzilla vs Gigan. He swims to join the fight. Also, most of Godzilla's screen time in this movie is him swimming, so it's really disappointing for that reason. It's just like really bad too. It's like the top of his head sticking out of some water, just moving quickly. It looks awful. What else is there to bash? And, you know, what else? What little plot is there? So, some bad guys, probably from Seatopia or Oceania or whatever. You know, what do? Are they beat up? That's what my notes say. So, some bad guys are beat up, I guess. Oh, they are. So, they throw a model plane. Also, that's a cool Easter egg. The model plane that the little boy in this movie buys is actually one of the planes that fights Godzilla, you know, and fights all these other kaiju. It's one of their little like actual prop planes that they use to fight the people in the suits. So it's really cool that he actually gets a hold of one of these at one point in the movie. He throws it at this dude and decks him in the face or something like that with it. He like nails him right in the head and then he attacks or something like that. So they do beat up these people who are breaking back into the laboratory. Gigan is sent to Earth. He is asked to join the fight and help Megalon out, which is really weird. They're like, yo, people from Space Hunter Nebula 3 or whatever. They're like, can you send us Gigan? They're like, yeah, sure, we'll let you borrow Gigan. Like, first of all, how'd they get those guys' phone numbers? Second of all, like, I think they do, like, legitimately use a phone if I remember correctly or something like that. How did they get in contact with these people is my question. It doesn't make any sense. And why would they just be like, you know what? After all the trouble we went through last movie, you know, here's our giant monster again. I don't know. It's how'd they get a hold of Gigan? All right. I hate this movie. How'd they get a hold of Gigan? Because it doesn't make any sense if you think about it. Gigan retreats. Mind control is lost on Gigan in the last movie. He retreats, flies up into space. You know, he's on his own free will now. He flies away with Ghidorah. You'd think, you know, if the Space Hunter or Nebula M or whatever, they could get a hold of Gigan again, why couldn't they get a hold of Ghidorah again? So, my theory, there's no point in theorizing about the Showa series, or at least the late Showa series. It's done, it's over with, you know, we're never going to get confirmation of this crap, and we're just making things up to explain the plot holes. But here's what I'm going to make up to explain this plot hole. Let's just say that there's multiple Gigans, multiple identical Gigans. The one from last movie gets away, and then they just send a different Gigan. And, you know, that at least makes everything make sense, I guess. Alright, what else is there to talk about? So, yes, Gigan to join the fight with Megalon. Jet gains some AI for some reason. They don't explain that either. He's like, I programmed the ability for Jet Jaguar to reprogram himself in order to combat anything and make sure he never dies. It's like, well, then why doesn't he just be like, you know what? I'm going to program myself to grow 3,000 feet and squash Megalon. Like he's a legitimate beetle to a normal-sized human. Like, why doesn't he scale himself up that much? Why is Jet Jaguar like, I got a pretty good idea. What if I just turn into Megalon's size and then I could get kicked around until Godzilla shows up? I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. This stupid movie here. Jet Jaguar is actually a pretty awesome character in Godzilla Rulers of Earth, to be honest, though. But that's unrelated. I'm all over the place. Jet Jaguar versus Megalon. Megalon wins. Gigan shows up to join the fight. Jet definitely loses at this point. He's getting thrown up in the air, kicked around. Yeah, they are bullying Jet Jaguar for sure. Godzilla shows up to lend a hand. It's a 2v2. Godzilla fights like a freaking boxer. Like, he punches and kicks and does all this weird stuff we've never seen him do before. There are some good moments in the fight. So the good moments being like when Godzilla and Jet Jaguar are completely surrounded by fire and they're both back to back looking at each other, like, or looking at Megalon and Gigan, like, what are we gonna do? There's also some great moments where the Godzilla or Jet Jaguar is like someone's throwing one of the other ones up in the air, and then like Godzilla will blast them down out of the air with his atomic breath or something like that. That's a pretty sweet scene. And you know, clearly it's not that sweet because I don't even quite know exactly what happens. Maybe I should have watched this movie again, but you guys don't understand. Like, I wasn't even on my phone or anything. This movie's so boring, I zoned out staring at my ceiling. It is not good. So, like I said, there are some good moments in the fight. Particularly, my favorite part of the movie is, like I said, when there's fire all around them, and they're back to back, and it's a pretty sweet scene. Like I said, the tide shifts a lot. It's very abrupt when the tide shifts between who's winning and who's losing. Almost as abrupt as when daytime transitions flip. So, in this movie, one thing you'll notice is that day and night flip so randomly, it doesn't make any sense. Like, one scene will be daytime, then the next scene will be nighttime, then the next scene will be like turning nighttime, then the next scene will be like turning daytime, then the next scene will be like high day, midday, and then the next scene will be like nighttime again. And all these scenes are like within the same fight sequence. It's so freaking weird. And you're like, you know, these people who are watching the fight, they couldn't have just sat there like on this hill for like a week watching this fight happen. You just know that it's a continuity error. God, dude, like I said, you can't condemn this. You can't go so hard on this movie because they literally had no budget to make this movie. They legitimately had to ask people for ideas for this movie. Jet Jaguar is not their own creation. That was just them being like, well, we're screwed. Someone want to help us out here? Little kid designed the thing. It was a little kid in a competition designed Jet Jaguar, obviously. You look at the thing and you know it. Obviously, a little kid designed this. This was them trying to rival Zone Fighter, trying to rival, well, they weren't trying to rival Zone Fighter necessarily. They had Godzilla team up with them eventually. Trying to rival Ultraman specifically is what they were trying to do. They're like, oh, Ultraman literally killed our movies. What can we do other than make our own Ultraman? And they made Jet Jaguar. There's even some sequel bait at the end of this movie where they're like, Jet Jaguar will save us again if the day ever arises. And it's like, yeah, actually no, though, because Godzilla winds up saving you throughout the rest of the Showa series. So, yeah, maybe not. Also, Jet Jaguar and Zone Fighter never cross over either. So you're just like, you know what? Jet Jaguar just disappears and never seen again. Yeah, whatever. It's not like it matters. God. Too long fight sequences are too long. Like I said, there are some epic moments, but overall, the fight sequence lasts way longer than it should. Like, even when it's just Jet Jaguar versus Megalon and Gigan, like, you're just waiting for Godzilla to show up. When he eventually does show up, it's still like, you know what, this is still not necessarily worth it. So, like I said, there is some great use of the atomic breath throughout this fight. We actually see the atomic breath. I feel like we see it more used here than we ever have before in the series, and that's awesome. Next movie will be a huge improvement. The atomic breath's actually used to do some awesome things. Next movie too, with the force field and everything like that. But this one has some pretty creative uses of the atomic breath. Godzilla's tail slide of victory. So this is another great scene. So Gigan actually retreats. Gigan retreats because he comes over under his own free will again, and he flies off never to be seen again. Well, technically he is, because Zone Fighter, but he flies off never to be seen in the Godzilla series again. He's out of there. He retreats again, which is another great thing, because it shows that Showa Gigan's just this huge coward when he's not mind-controlled. Last movie, he tries to retreat like 8 times in a row, and Godzilla keeps shooting him out of the sky, and it eventually takes until Ghidorah retreats with him for them to both leave. But this fight, Gigan just abandons it halfway through. He's like, you know what? I'm out. We're gonna die. I don't want to die. I like life, and he leaves. So that's a really neat thing. And then Jet Jaguar restrains Megalon. Godzilla's tail slides into him. You guys all know what I'm talking about. I don't even need to go more in depth with that scene. It doesn't make any sense. It's goofy fun though. So the tail slides into him, and Godzilla and Jet Jaguar win. Megalon loses. Does Megalon die? Does he run away? I don't know. I wasn't paying enough attention. Godzilla leaves. Everyone walks away with Jet Jaguar. Jet Jaguar's theme song plays. The best part of this movie is the music, by the way. So Jet Jaguar's theme plays. The end. And, yeah. Man, it's bad. So, plot of this movie, terrible. Hardly any plot, nothing makes sense, really, really corny and cheesy, and this is just where the camp factor is taken to an all-time high. This is what gets Godzilla a bad reputation, is these movies, this later half of the Showa series gets Godzilla its bad reputation. It's a shame because, like I said, one of my favorite movies of all times is Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, and it's a shame because that's also a very campy movie. The second half of the Showa series just definitely, a lot of people discredit Godzilla because of it, and it's very disappointing. Music, not terrible, but not great. Like, this is not one of the soundtracks you're going to remember. Other than the Jet Jaguar theme, you're not going to remember it. Even the Go Go Godzilla song in this one, what? Who is it, Blue Oyster Cult who does Go Go Godzilla? What, that one popular, I think it is Blue Oyster Cult. So you're like, what, that song? No, it's a different song. It's a Japanese song. It's not good. Yeah, this movie is basically like they took the Godzilla vs. Hedra soundtrack and they're like, let's take a bleak, like, dumb, no one can listen to this soundtrack and make it, you know what, somewhat more entertaining, make it more upbeat at the very least. That's what this movie is, and the music in this movie. And then we have Jet Jaguar's theme. It's awesome. Like, even though it is just so ridiculous and terrible, it's awesome. That's one of the things that's so good it's bad. I loved the Jaguar song. I actually listened, not a lot, but I actually have listened to that just for the sake of, you know what, why not? And that's how you know a Godzilla song is good, is if I listen to it for the sake of why not. Like, some of the music, like Shin Godzilla soundtrack, I listen to that thing like all the time. The 54 soundtrack, all the time I'm listening to that thing. This is one of those ones that is like that song alone I'll listen to occasionally, and that's how you know it's at least not terrible. Human stuff in this movie is awful. It's terrible. Monster stuff in this movie, awful. It's terrible. Godzilla's a big gun. Very rarely is he even seen in the movie other than swimming. It's awful. Effects in this movie are terrible. Way too much stock footage. Godzilla swims for most of his screen time, like I keep saying. It's just so bad. Oh, this movie's terrible. 4 out of 10. I don't know what I rated, Hedra or Sea Monster. Like, maybe I gave them higher ratings, like 6 out of 10, or like 1, maybe even a 1 out of 10. I don't remember my ratings for those movies. And if this is lower than those, I do enjoy this movie more than I enjoy those. It's just personally, when I was doing this rating, I was like, I cannot give it a 6 out of 10. Because that means it's got at least slightly more good elements than it does bad elements. And I can't give it a 5 out of 10 because it's not so down the middle that it's a nothing, absolutely nothing movie. This movie's bad. So I give it a 4 out of 10. If I didn't give the other movies a lower rating, let's just say that, you know what, we'll give both Sea Monster and Hedra, or we'll give Sea Monster like a 2 out of 10. We'll give Hedra like a 1 to a 0 out of 10. That movie's terrible. So there you have it for my review of Godzilla vs. Megalon. Don't watch this movie, guys. Save your time if you're gonna have to sit through it. For if you're like, oh, but I marathon Godzilla movies all the time, and this, I love this movie. Good for you, man. I'm not here to tell you you're wrong. I'm here to say that I don't like it. But if you're like, oh, I want to watch all the Godzilla movies ever, and this is one of those ones that I haven't seen, so I have to watch it at some point. You don't necessarily. I mean, if you just pop in the MSG3K, you're good to go. If I watched that one instead of watching this, instead of just watching the straight-up movie, I would have probably had a lot more fun with it. I would have at least followed the plot a little bit more somehow because I would have been more engaged. But you know what? I don't own that, so I had to sit through the original cut. It's awful. I don't like it, and yeah, 4 out of 10. After watching, okay, so actually in the Showa universe, after the events of this movie, Godzilla and Zone Fighter. This is just a fun fact of trivia. Godzilla and Zone Fighter, which was an Ultraman rival slash ripoff. They eventually would team up and kill Gigan. Godzilla and Zone Fighter also, or at least Zone Fighter alone, would eventually fight King Ghidorah again in the series Zone Fighter. Clearly they don't kill him because he shows back up and destroy all monsters, and that's when they eventually finally kill him off. So, yeah, just a fun fact of trivia. Gigan winds up getting killed, officially killed, in Zone Fighter. And if you haven't seen those, I haven't seen them in full, but they are pretty entertaining from what I've seen. Someday I'll get my hands on them, and we'll review them when I do, and, you know, however long that is. So, thank you guys all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. That's been my... I don't know what episode this is, like 15th episode or something like that of Godzilla-Thon. I don't remember off the top of my head. This has been one of the episodes of Godzilla-Thon, the newest episode of Godzilla-Thon. I hope you enjoyed. Cannot wait for Godzilla vs Megalon. I actually really love that movie, and I love watching it, so it's a good excuse to watch it. Thank you guys all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I feel like I say that way too much. D-Man, out. ロボットだけどジェッジャガージェッジャガーやったぜジャガー行け行け平和を守るためみんなも驚く勇気を見せる